When I asked for clarification on an assignment, my supervisor barked, "If you can't handle basic instructions, maybe this isn't the place for you." He chuckled and added loud enough for everyone to hear, "It's a miracle you got hired in the first place." I smiled, printed out every email where he had contradicted himself, and when corporate compliance asked for an audit, I delivered a binder so thick it hit the desk with a thud. So yeah, this happened last year, and it still makes me feel something every time I think about it. I'm Ray. Mid-40s. Married. 2 kids in high school. Live just outside Cincinnati. I've worked in warehouses and logistics most of my life. I'm not a genius or anything, but I take pride in doing a good job and being reliable. I don't start drama, but I'm not going to let someone treat me like garbage either. When I got hired at Caltra Logistics, I thought it was a win. Good hours. Decent benefits. Better pay than my last place. Seemed like the kind of company where I could just show up, work hard, and go home without too much stress. That illusion didn't last long. My supervisor, Greg Madden, was the kind of guy you could tell had been promoted for being loud, not smart. He wore those tight polo shirts like he was still in college and always had this fake smile on his face, like he was doing us a favor just by showing up. Every meeting felt like a stand-up show for him. He made little jabs at people, laughed at his own jokes, and always made sure to remind us that he'd been there 10 years. I don't like confrontation, but I can smell BS from a mile away. And Greg? He was full of it. Things started going sideways when I noticed he never gave the same instruction twice. He'd send an email on Monday saying to use one form for vendor tracking, then on Wednesday, he'd shout at someone for using that same form. When they tried to explain, he'd cut them off and say, "I never told you to use that." It kept happening. So I started saving emails. Not out of revenge, at first, I just wanted to protect myself. Every time he contradicted himself, I'd save a screenshot, export the Slack thread, and file the emails in a folder on my desktop named Madden Mayhem. I didn't tell anyone. I just kept my head down and kept collecting. Then came the moment everything shifted. There was a new vendor protocol rollout. The instructions were garbage. Some documents said we had to use a new spreadsheet. Others told us to keep using the old one with a few new columns added. It was confusing as hell, and no one could get a straight answer. So I walked into Greg's office. Just calmly said, "Hey Greg, I just wanted to make sure I'm using the right vendor form. Do you want the new spreadsheet or the old one with the added fields?" He didn't look up. He kept typing for a second, then gave this fake sigh and said, "If you can't handle basic instructions, maybe this isn't the place for you." I was stunned. And then, as if that wasn't enough, he chuckled and said loud enough for others to hear, "It's a miracle you got hired in the first place." No one laughed. The room went quiet. I smiled, not out of kindness, but because I knew I wasn't the only one who'd noticed how bad things were. And I had the receipts. I walked back to my desk. Opened the folder. Started printing. Every email. Every message. Every contradiction. Pages and pages of it. Fast forward a few weeks. Corporate sends out a notice, routine compliance audit coming. Greg starts sweating. He calls a last-minute meeting, tells us to keep things clean, whatever that meant. I could tell he was panicking, even though he tried to act like it was no big deal. The audit team shows up. They're quiet, professional, asking everyone for documentation. Greg gives them a mess of half-filled reports and conflicting procedures. Then I ask them, "Would you like to see some records I've kept for personal clarity? Could help you see the changes over time." They said yes. So I brought in my binder. It was thick, almost 5 inches. I dropped it on the table in the conference room and it hit the desk with a loud thud. Everyone looked up. One of the auditors flipped through the first few pages, then looked at me and asked, "You kept all this?" "Yep," I said. "Everything's timestamped." All of it is either emailed directly from Greg or copied from our Slack workspace. They thanked me. No expressions. Just took it and kept reading. Greg didn't come in the next day. Or the day after that. By Monday, his office was cleared out. An email went out from HR, something about moving on to new opportunities and appreciation for his years of service. But that wasn't even the best part. While putting together that binder, I found something else. Something big. And it didn't just involve Greg. It went higher. When I said I found something big, I wasn't exaggerating. See, while I was sorting through Greg's emails for the binder, I started noticing a pattern. Some of the vendor forms he made us use had different tracking numbers than the official company templates. At first, I thought maybe it was just Greg being sloppy again. But then I matched a few of the forms to the actual shipments. They didn't line up. Some of the vendors listed on Greg's forms weren't in our system. I double-checked with our logistics coordinator, Mara, who's sharp and knows the system better than anyone. I asked her real casual, "Hey, you ever heard of ClearPath Global Transport?" She squinted and said, "Who?" I showed her the form. She'd never seen that vendor. I checked our approved vendor list. ClearPath wasn't on it. But Greg had sent 3 emails over the past 2 months referencing them. He even approved 2 invoices with that vendor's name on them. I looked at the invoice numbers. They were processed through our finance system. Now I was suspicious. So I took one of the invoice numbers, opened our expense tracking software, and pulled it up. It showed payment was approved and released, around $8,500 for freight handling and priority shipment. Only there was no record of that shipment ever leaving our warehouse. That's when it hit me. Greg wasn't just sloppy. He was dirty. He was submitting fake invoices for fake vendors and approving them himself. Which explained all the confusion. The ever-changing rules. The contradictions. He'd created chaos on purpose, so no one would notice the real mess. Now I had a decision to make. I already gave corporate compliance the binder. But that was just about Greg being a bad boss. This was fraud. This was theft. And if I turned it in, I knew 2 things would happen. Greg was toast. I'd have a target on my back. Because someone else had to be helping him. No way he was doing this alone. Those payments had to be signed off by someone in finance. I didn't sleep that night. My wife noticed I was off. I didn't tell her everything, but I said, "Something's going on at work. Big." Next morning, I printed the invoice copies, marked the vendor names, and dropped them in an envelope. No return address. I left it in the audit team's mailbox before anyone else got in. 3 days later, the compliance director, Ms. Kavanaugh, called me into a closed-door meeting. She laid out the invoice copies on the table and just said, "Did you give these to us?" I nodded. I did. Quietly. I didn't want to make noise unless I was sure. She stared at me for a long time, then said, "You did the right thing. And you're not the only one who's noticed something's off." That's when she told me something that chilled me to the bone. There were 5 more fake vendors. And the payments totaled over $190,000 across the last year. And Greg wasn't alone. Someone in finance was manually overriding the flags in the system that should have caught them. Someone higher up. She didn't say names. But she looked tired. Real tired. "We're about to blow this wide open," she said. "But we're going to need more. And if you're willing, we want you to help." I felt sick. I never wanted to be in this deep. I just wanted to do my job and not get yelled at by some clown in a tight polo shirt. But now I was in the middle of something huge. So I told her, "Yeah. I'll help." What followed in the next few weeks was like something out of a movie. But it was real. And it got darker. Much darker. I didn't know what helping corporate really meant at first. Turns out, it meant being watched. Closely. Within a few days of that meeting with Ms. Kavanaugh, I got a quiet visit from someone named Victor Hayes. Said he was from corporate security and compliance. He looked like the kind of guy who never raised his voice but got exactly what he wanted. He met me in the parking lot after work, in plain clothes, and walked with me like we were just coworkers chatting. "Ray, we're building a case," he said. "We believe Greg was working with someone in finance. Possibly more than one person. We're tracking IPs, print logs, access badges, even phone records. What we need from you is behavior patterns. Help us confirm who's in the room when things happen. Who signs off on what? Who disappears right after something goes through?" I didn't agree right away. I was worried. I asked, "If I do this, and it blows up, who protects me?" He looked me dead in the eye and said, "We will. But only if you follow the plan exactly." I agreed. So now I was going to work every day like normal, smiling, nodding, acting like everything was fine. But I was watching. Logging things. Making notes in a small notepad I kept in my sock. Recording dates, times, who was in what meeting, when someone logged into the shared vendor system. I took screenshots when I could. Used my phone camera when I had to. That's when I started noticing someone I hadn't paid attention to before, Jordan Reeves. He was a mid-level finance analyst, always kept to himself, real quiet. But I realized he was in the building way after hours. He'd stay long after everyone left. At first, I figured he was just a workaholic. But then I caught something. One night, I had to stay late fixing a pallet manifest that got mislabeled. I came back in to print something around 8:15 p.m. The main office lights were off, except Jordan's. His door was cracked open. I walked by and saw him with two screens open. One was our internal payment approval system. The other was a VPN session routed through an external server. IP address didn't match our region. I didn't say anything. I just walked past like I didn't see it. That night, I wrote it all down. Next morning, I told Victor. I gave him everything. He told me to keep acting normal. But things didn't feel normal. I started noticing changes. People started acting weird around me. My desk got moved suddenly, closer to the back. I got left off some team emails. Greg was long gone, but someone else was keeping tabs now. I could feel it. Then came the shocker. An anonymous tip got sent to HR accusing me of accessing restricted files and sharing internal data without permission. They said I was snooping into things I shouldn't be touching. I got called into HR and grilled for over an hour. Luckily, Victor had already warned me. He told me the pushback would come. That whoever Greg was working with still had power. He had me wear a hidden recorder to the HR meeting. The second they started accusing me, I asked for specifics. They gave vague answers. I stayed calm. Didn't deny anything, just kept asking for proof. Next day, the complaint disappeared. That's when I realized how serious this had become. I wasn't just helping an audit anymore. I was stuck in the middle of a war inside this company. Greg was just the front. The real problem was deeper. Older. More protected. And then, out of nowhere, Mara, our logistics coordinator, pulled me aside in the loading dock. "You need to watch your back," she whispered. "Someone's digging through your workstation logs. I saw IT pull your terminal access records yesterday." I asked, "Who ordered that?" She paused. "Jordan." That sealed it for me. Now I knew. Jordan wasn't just a helper. He was the one running it. Greg was the loud mouth. Jordan was the brain. The guy behind the curtain. But what I didn't expect was what happened next. I went home one night to find a plain white envelope in my mailbox. No postage. No return address. Just my name. Inside? A USB drive. And a note that said, "You're not safe." Watch this. Then decide. The video on the USB changed everything. It showed Greg, months ago, meeting with Jordan in the parking garage. A voice recording played over the video. Jordan saying, "You keep this quiet, we both stay fed. You get greedy again, I pull everything." Greg replied, "Nobody's watching. Ray's just a worker bee. He won't do anything." That was the moment I knew I couldn't stop. I was in this now. And I was going to bring the whole damn thing down. But first, I had to go deeper. I didn't sleep much after watching that video. My name, said so casually by two guys who were stealing from the company, like I was just some idiot who'd never catch on. I wasn't a hero. I didn't set out to expose a criminal ring. I just asked a damn question and got laughed at in front of my team. But now I had proof. And I had rage. I didn't give the USB to corporate right away. First, I made 2 copies. One went in a safe deposit box under my wife's name. The other went to a friend of mine from my old job, Travis. He's now working in IT security for a big private firm in Columbus. I trusted him. I told him, if anything happens to me, release this. Make it public. Then I called Victor. He listened to the recording and watched the video without saying a word. Then he leaned forward and said, "We've suspected Jordan. We just couldn't prove it. Until now." Things moved fast after that. Corporate launched a full internal investigation, quietly at first. They locked down the finance system and froze vendor payments. Sent out a memo saying it was due to system maintenance. Meanwhile, Victor and Ms. Kavanaugh set up hidden cameras in key areas. Every new move Jordan made got tracked. Then one day, Jordan came in late. He looked nervous. Sweaty. He started downloading files from his work terminal to an external drive. Victor had seen it coming. IT had rigged his system, everything was mirrored in real time. By noon, Jordan was pulled into a meeting on the 9th floor. He never came back down. The news came down that afternoon. Jordan Reeves was terminated for gross misconduct, breach of company policy, and suspected financial fraud. But they weren't done. They traced the payments to an LLC Greg had set up 3 years ago. Guess who was listed as a silent partner? One of the senior directors in finance. A woman named Dana Whitaker. Had been with Caltra for 15 years. Always smiled. Always polite. Always distant. They escorted her out the next morning. No warnings. No chance to clear her desk. 2 security guards. Her badge deactivated. I saw it happen. She walked past me, her face stone cold. She didn't even look at me. Greg was arrested 2 weeks later. Turns out, once they got Jordan's laptop, they got everything: emails, payments, call logs. Greg had taken about $80,000 for himself. Jordan had taken more. Dana was the one who knew how to cover their tracks. They all got charged with fraud, conspiracy, and wire theft. It hit the local news. Then regional. Caltra tried to keep it quiet, but it got out. They had to issue a public statement. Investors got spooked. There were layoffs in 2 departments, nothing to do with me, but it hurt morale. And then something strange happened. I got promoted. I didn't ask for it. Didn't want it, honestly. But corporate insisted. Said they needed someone honest in leadership. Gave me a team, a raise, and an office. People started treating me different. Some with respect. Some with caution. A few, with envy. At first, it felt like justice. But then the guilt hit me. Not because I did anything wrong. But because I helped blow up a system that hurt people beyond just the crooks. Some good folks lost jobs because of the fallout. The company had to cut costs, move contracts, delay raises. And yeah, I was rewarded, but I also saw behind the curtain. Caltra didn't promote me because they believed in me. They promoted me because they were scared. They needed a symbol. A clean face to put in front of the rest. That stung. A little. But what mattered most was that I didn't let them walk over me. I didn't let Greg humiliate me and get away with it. I didn't let Jordan's quiet smirk turn into another year of fraud. I didn't stay quiet like they thought I would. I stood up. And now, every time someone asks me why I take notes, why I double-check instructions, why I ask dumb questions, I just smile and say, because I've seen what happens when you don't. And somewhere out there, Greg, Jordan, and Dana are still trying to figure out how the guy they laughed at ended up taking down their entire scheme. Poetic? Maybe. But real? Absolutely.